Hi everyone, my name is Kirstin Krauss. I'm Research Advisor for Wiz Academy and Facilitator of their Research Capacity Building Workshops. Welcome to the Wiz Academy YouTube channel where we empower researchers with tools to excel in their research. In today's video, I'm going to share a small snippet from a workshop that I did a while back. And in this short snippet, I address the question of what is scientific knowledge production. Have you ever wondered what philosophy means in context of science? Or why so many doctorates are called PhDs, PH for philosophy? Or have you ever wondered what it means to do scientific knowledge production or scientific argumentation? Or even why we use the concept thesis to talk about what we do as doctoral students or master students? So if you're interested in understanding scientific argumentation, or if you're interested in understanding what scientific knowledge production means, you're welcome to stay tuned, because in this next snippet I explain that to a bunch of students from a technical university in South Africa. And so if we were to define scientific knowledge production, this is really it. And so if there's anything you want to do, you want to take a picture of this and print it out and put it up at your office where you work. There's like 3 sentences here. The first sentence says that in any scientific endeavor, okay, whether it's master's, whether it's doctorate, whether it's a research paper, you need to be able to carefully craft scientific arguments in writing. Okay, that's the essence of science. So there's 2 parts to that. There's a fact that it's a scientific argument, but there's a second point there: it needs to be crafted. And the argumentation really only happens at the point of writing. You might have the argument in your head, okay, or you might have the evidence and you can put it together with literature and come up with sort of an argument there, but it only really gets crafted at the point of writing. So there's 2 parts here in the first sentence. It's about the fact that there's an argument, but secondly, that argument needs to be crafted. And you need to master both those skills. The second sentence says that scientific argumentation begins with research problems and questions and an appropriate conceptual basis in the form of a review of the right literature. This really speaks to the fact that you cannot claim that you've got a research problem, a real problem, or a real research question if you haven't explored the literature. And I would say the right literature, exploring the right literature safely. If you haven't explored the literature to confirm that there's in fact a problem, you can claim that you've got a problem, or you can claim that you've got a knowledge gap, but you need to defend that knowledge gap by saying, I've read all the literature, I've applied systematic rigor in the process, and I can confirm, despite reading 30 papers on the topic, nobody has answered this question, and therefore I answer it. Or nobody's answered this question in this context for South Africa, in Free State, or wherever, and therefore I'm answering it. Okay, and so before you can even start your argumentation, you need to build a conceptual basis, something to start with. It's like if you join a bunch of experts in your field, you can't just walk in and start talking and adding your contribution. You need to first listen what they have to say, and sometimes it takes some time to listen. And that act of listening is like doing your review of literature. You listen to the expert, you get the expert, you identify them, listen to what they say are the problems, listen to what they say in terms of the methods. And then you say, okay, listening to all of this, I can identify a research problem, and this is my research problem. The third question says that quality scientific arguments consist out of specific claims that should be developed and presented with internal consistency so that examiners, reviewers, and readers can easily follow the logic of scientific inquiry. Now, in this statement, my third sentence, there are specific things you need to claim, specific types of arguments. Okay, and I'll go into that in detail, but for example, you need to defend a problem. You need to defend a particular review of literature. You need to defend a choice of method. Okay? So there's specific claims. There's about 10 of them. Okay? But then your defense, your argumentation should be presented in such a way that your readers can follow the logic and see the internal consistency between problem, literature, method, and findings, for example. Okay? So there's a golden thread running through. And so if you use artificial intelligence, for example, to generate claims, yes, you can make the claims, but nowhere can you present the internal consistency because you don't know where the claims come from. Okay, so there's a real risk of relying on AI, for example, or copying from somebody else. You can make claims, but how are you going to defend the internal consistency? Okay, how are you going to write down the logic in such a way that it's easy to follow if you haven't engaged in the logic, okay, of generating these claims? So that's really core to what we should see as scientific knowledge production. These principles apply to any type of degree. It applies to a deeply philosophical degree. It can also apply to a technical degree, meaning something that you'd like do with University of Technology. And so if you, or even with a doctorate in business administration, a DBA, there's claims that you want to make about a contribution, and then there's a logic that you need to put forward and defend and actually highlight for your reader. This statement here actually leads us to the question of who are our readers. Okay, and if you think about it, there's actually just like 4 or 5 readers of your thesis or your dissertation. It's yourself. Hopefully you read your own dissertation. Okay, I know my wife never read it. Okay, and I don't blame her. You know, she heard everything. So it's you got 3 examiners potentially, or maybe 2 examiners, and then 1 or 2 supervisors. So in essence, you got like 5 people reading it. And the most important ones, I would say, are your examiners and your supervisor. And so in essence, what you want to do is to help them read. Okay, and if you want to help them read, you need to highlight the logic of scientific inquiry to show that it's easy to follow. There might be a consistency, but if it's not easy to follow, your arguments will fall flat. And if you keep in mind an examiner, so a typical examiner would be a professor. You know, if you're busy with a doctorate, that guy sits overseas. They're extremely busy people. You know, and now a PhD ends on, or doctorate ends on their desk, and they want to read through this, but there's like the argument, the golden thread is kind of hidden in the process. And so you need to keep in mind that these are busy people. They won't read your dissertation in one sitting. And so if, let's say, for example, they read chapter 1 and they put it aside for a couple of days, and now they start with chapter 2, but they can't remember what chapter 1 was about. And now they need to scan through chapter 1 before they can continue chapter 2. If you do a simple thing such as just give reminders in the beginning of chapter 2, what chapter 1 was about, what the problems were about, then you kind of remind your examiner, who are busy, the examiners who are busy people, where they are and how this chapter fits into the big picture. So keep in mind who's your reader, and then write for them, help them read. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Best of luck with writing your own thesis.